Hey now, it's time for another episode of Wrestling's Greatest Moments. Scott Bam Bam Bigelow lived a dangerous life, playing with fire, whether it was running with a motorcycle club or landing himself in a Mexican prison after a bounty hunter job gone sideways. His entry into the world of wrestling seemed like a way out, as he was nothing short of a phenomenon. Despite his incredible size and astonishing agility, he failed to find the lasting main event success that he seemed destined for in North America. Bigelow's post-wrestling career would find himself battling the law and suffering hellish burns after rescuing his neighbors from a fire. Scott Bigelow was born on September 1st, 1961, in Secaucus, New Jersey. The burly teen found success in high school sports, lettering in football and wrestling. While he struggled at academics, he soared as an athlete. During his sophomore year in amateur wrestling, he made it to the state championships, but couldn't defeat Bruce Baumgartner, something understandable in hindsight, as Baumgartner would win Olympic gold in wrestling in 1984 and 1992. Bigelow vied for a state championship during his senior year, but he was forced out when a large cyst developed on his back. Bigelow dropped out of school and things began to go downhill, with life in prison appearing inevitable. In a 1995 interview with the Asbury Park Press, Bigelow discussed his uncertain future after leaving high school. "I'll admit it, I went through a real messed up period. I didn't have much education, I didn't have much going on for me, so I ended up getting into a lot of trouble. I did a lot of bad things, but I wasn't a bad person." The future wrestler said he hung out with the wrong crowd, including what he referred to as motorcycle cliques. Bigelow was incarcerated at the Albert C. Wagner Youth Correctional Institution after fighting a motorcycle club's president. Convicted of aggravated assault, Bigelow claims he fought in self-defense after the man put a gun to his head. Later, Bigelow found himself in prison, this time south of the border. "It's pretty funny. I answered an ad in the Asbury Park Press. The guy was looking for a bounty hunter. His Mexican wife had run off with their child. He wanted me to locate them. Apparently someone tipped off the police, and they were waiting for me." After serving 6 months in Mexican prison, Bigelow realized it was time to change the path he was on, and he went with the only thing he felt qualified for: professional wrestling. Bigelow began training with the Wild Samoans Wrestling School, followed by Larry Sharp's Monster Factory. While Bigelow had never been a fan of wrestling growing up, his size made him a natural, and Sharp must have seen dollar signs when Bigelow entered his school. After working at the indie circuit, Bam Bam debuted in Memphis, Tennessee's Continental Wrestling Association, where he worked as a monster heel, destroying opponent after opponent until he captured his first title, the AWA Southern Heavyweight Championship, on July 7, 1986. Bigelow dropped the belt to Jerry the King Lawler, but he quickly established himself as one of wrestling's hottest rookies. From there, Bigelow worked in Texas World Class Championship Wrestling as a villainous Russian, Crusher Yurkov. By 1987, there was no denying Bigelow's rising star. After returning to Memphis to help Jerry Lawler during his feud against Austin Idol and Tommy Rich, Bigelow traveled to Japan to tour in New Japan Pro Wrestling, a promotion that prided itself on only presenting the creme de la creme of the wrestling world. Not surprisingly, the WWF came calling, and Bigelow went to work for Vince McMahon, working a storyline where the Federation's heel managers wooed him as a client, an angle reminiscent of 2 years earlier when managers fought to sign Randy Macho Man Savage. Like Savage, Bigelow turned down the heel managers, but in his case, he opted for a babyface manager, Oliver Humperdinck, who ironically had worked as a heel manager for much of his career. Bigelow received a major push, allying himself with WWF champion Hulk Hogan during the Hulkster's battle with Andre the Giant and the Bobby Heenan family. Bigelow played a major role at the inaugural Survivor Series when he teamed with Hulk Hogan, Paul Orndorff, Ken Patera, and Don Morocco against Andre the Giant, Butch Reed, King Kong Bundy, the One Man Gang, and Rick Rude. Although Hogan's team lost, Bigelow fought an impressive solo battle against the three remaining heels, taking out Bundy and the One Man Gang before falling to Andre the Giant. Bigelow seemed certain to become a top star, but the big man revealed in a shoot interview that the combination of knee injuries that required surgery and backstage heat from wrestlers jealous of his push led to him leaving the WWF in 1988. After his knees healed, Bigelow went to World Championship Wrestling, but when the promotion demanded he sign an exclusive contract, he balked due to the lucrative deals he had been working in Japan. Bigelow's hasty exit from WCW garnered him a reputation as someone who might not be reliable as a top star. While Bigelow's potential might not have been realized in North America, he found tremendous success in New Japan, working there for 3 years, including his legendary tag team with Van Vader, where the two Titans held the IWGP Tag Team Championship as Big, Bad, and Dangerous. In 1993, Bigelow returned to the WWF, receiving an odd push that saw him feud with Doink the Clown. Things improved somewhat when he joined Ted DiBiase's $1 Million Corporation, and the WWF utilized him as an uppercard heel. This led to what many fans view as the greatest match of Bigelow's career. In 1995, Bigelow's career skyrocketed with his WrestleMania XI match against legendary NFL player Lawrence Taylor. Bigelow was working as a heel on Ted DiBiase's $1 Million Corporation and confronted Taylor at ringside after Bigelow was pinned by the 1-2-3 Kid in a tag match featuring Bigelow and Tatanka battling the Kid and Bob Holly for the vacant WWF Tag Team Championship. Bigelow shoved Taylor when he offered a handshake, leading to the WWF suspending Bigelow in his storyline. After initially refusing to wrestle, Taylor accepted Bigelow's challenge, and the two clashed at 1995's WrestleMania. During an interview leading up to the match, Bigelow remarked, "This is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. The opportunity is phenomenal. This is my chance to be one of the biggest stars of them all." While some fans and wrestling pundits were skeptical of how good the match would be, Taylor's athleticism and Bigelow's ring skills made it into a match that was well received and garnered the WWF plenty of mainstream coverage. Unfortunately for Bigelow, the match's success would hurt his WWF career. As recalled in James Dixon's magnum opus, Titan Sinking, Bigelow walked into a minefield when he inadvertently ran afoul of the Backstage faction, the Clique, the group of performers that included Diesel, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Sean Waltman, and Scott Hall. According to Dixon, the Bigelow vs. Taylor match main event upset some backstage. It was a bitter pill to swallow for Clique allies Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash, with Nash in particular irritated that the hype for the show centered around Taylor Bigelow rather than he and Shawn. "We should have closed the show because it was a title match. It was not like it was one of the boys coming back, and no one knew what kind of match they, Bigelow and Taylor, were going to have." Bigelow's performance earned him plenty of accolades, but according to Figure 4 Online's obituary of Bigelow, the big man's potential to climb to the main event concerned members of the Clique. According to the story, Nash was in a precarious position as his WWF Championship was anything but a success. The story I always heard was that they explained to Vince that you couldn't push a guy to the top of the company that had just lost clean to a football player with no wrestling experience on the biggest show of the entire year. Whatever the reason, Bigelow was buried to McMahon, and his push to the top came to a halt. Bigelow never received a main event push, and when it became clear he had no future in the WWF, Bam Bam left for greener pastures, including ECW and Japan's War promotion. Bigelow even fought in MMA, losing to Kimmo on November 17, 1996. In 1998, Bigelow joined WCW, working in a variety of roles, including his time as a member of the New Jersey Triad, with Diamond Dallas Page and Chris Kanyon. Finally, WCW closed in 2001, and Bigelow collected the remainder of his WCW contract, despite the company being defunct. Bam Bam Bigelow wasn't afraid to help young stars get over. Bigelow's ECW career saw him make careers out of Taz and Rob Van Dam. RVD talked to WWE.com about Bigelow's help when Van Dam beat him for the ECW World Television title. I got the biggest rub of my career that night, and that match turned me into a superstar. In ECW, the Beast from the East was involved in some of Extreme Championship Wrestling's wildest spots, including the time he threw Spike Dudley out of the ring and in the crowd, and the time he threw Taz through a wrestling ring. Bam Bam had a knack for creating unforgettable moments and making sure the fans never forgot his dancing partners. Likewise, Bigelow did the job for Bill Goldberg in WCW during Goldberg's meteoric rise to the top, making the greenest grass rookie look like a champion. Bigelow's later years saw him face several violent incidents, the first when he saved a group of neighbors from an out-of-control fire. The Orlando Sentinel reported, Bam Bam Bigelow is recuperating at home following a bizarre July 4th incident during a barbecue near his home in Wayside, New Jersey. Bigelow suffered burns over 40% of his body when a brush fire broke out near the cookout. Bigelow was trying to help several people get away from the flames when he suffered second-degree burns on his arms, legs, and most of the left side of his body. On October 4th, 2005, Bigelow was involved in a motorcycle crash that could have landed him in prison, according to an October 4th, 2005 report from the Tampa Bay Times. The accident happened about 4:30 p.m. just east of Deltona Boulevard. According to the report, Bigelow was traveling east and trying to change from the outside lane to the inside lane. The motorcycle was the only vehicle involved. Neither Bigelow nor Ramitsovitz was wearing a helmet. Ramitsovitz was seriously injured, with eyewitnesses believing she was going to die. She was taken to the hospital while law enforcement monitored her condition. If Ramitsovitz died, Bigelow faced vehicular homicide charges, which could have landed him in prison. Thankfully, Ramitsovitz recovered. In a 2005 interview with the St. Petersburg Times, Michael Cruz, Bigelow disclosed, I had a few beers that day, but it wasn't nothing exceeding what people go overboard with. Who knows? It's all a blur. It doesn't matter. It happened. Like many successful wrestlers, Bigelow saw his post-wrestling life much different from his heyday in the ring. Cruz's article on Bigelow revealed, in his best years, according to him and his agent, he was making anywhere from $750,000 to $1.2 million. He lost everything, he says, in his divorce. Cars, trucks, motorcycles, his house. Now he lives on Social Security disability. With creditors chasing him down, including money owed for back child support, Bigelow's life was much different. I don't know if it's hiding or disappointment or what, but being Bam Bam Bigelow is a pain in the ass. You did this in the first half of your life, and now this is the second half, and now you're bruised and battered. So what the hell can you do? What can you do? Nonetheless, Bigelow seemed to find a certain amount of happiness with Janice, but it was not to last. The early years of the 21st century seemed like a parade of premature deaths for professional wrestlers from the 1980s and 1990s. The Nasty Boys' Jerry Saggs recalled in a conversation that he had had with Bigelow, in a lot of ways he was just like a big teddy bear that had that New Jersey attitude about him. My last conversation with Bam Bam, I saw the state he was in, and I said, man, we've lost 40 of our friends in recent years. I'm tired of going to funerals. Don't let it happen to you. Tragically, it did. Bigelow passed away on January 19, 2007, at age 45. According to the Daily News, survivors include daughter Riki and sons Shane and Scott, who live with his ex-wife in Ocean County, New Jersey. Bigelow's cause of death was eventually revealed, with the Tampa Tribune reporting Bigelow's death was caused by toxic levels of cocaine and the anti-anxiety drug benzodiazepine in the system. Death was ruled accidental by the Pascal Pinella's medical examiner's office. A contributing factor in Bigelow's passing was arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease, a narrowing of small blood vessels that supply blood and oxygen to the heart. While Bigelow would headline WrestleMania XI's main event match between himself and future NFL Hall of Famer Lawrence Taylor, that would be the peak of his career. Indeed, while the WWE described him as the most natural, agile, and physically remarkable big man of the past quarter century, and Bret Hart complimented him as possibly the best working big man in the business, Superstardom eluded him outside Japan. Nonetheless, Bigelow left a lasting impression with his peers and wrestling fans, and his legacy as one of wrestling's best big men endures. While he never won any world championships, Bigelow was a top star in Japan and highly respected by his peers. He added instant credibility to any promotion he worked for, and he used his star power to help others get over, one of the greatest gifts a wrestler can bestow on another. Share your thoughts in the comments section and let us know if there's any videos you'd like wrestling's greatest moments to cover. In the meantime, subscribe to our channel, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and spread the good news about wrestling's greatest moments, the channel that celebrates a squared circle.